How is it going, ladies and gents? I have started screen recording because I see this potential trade coming out, and I wanted to make this a lesson regarding the Asia sweep and what kind of thought process you should look to have as you encounter these style of trade setups. So the first thing that I want to make you very much aware of is the state of the higher time frame. In fact, let me just go onto this tab. So what you can see here, if we go onto the daily, is that we are starting to print the bearish side of this leg, right? So we've got very retractive nature here, right? Liquid PA. We don't leave any behind any bullish arrays, which just shows you this is exhausted sellers and not intentional buyers. We take out buy side liquidity, and now we are looking to roll over. You see, we don't get any actual daily arrays here. However, what we do get is a liquidity grab of this Tuesday high. We grab or buyers try to step in, that fails, sellers step in aggressively, breaking price down, and now we are more or less anticipating further sell side delivery on the day. Why? Because we've taken out these lows down here. We've attempted to take out these lows down here, and on our lower time frames, we're not seeing any bullish intent out of this sell side liquidity that I just marked out, right? There's no bullish intent coming out of that. So we're looking to target the previous day's low and potentially this low here as a draw on liquidity. As we go into lower time frames, you see that we have this bearish imbalance. We've taken out this area of sell side liquidity. Let me make that white here and here. We've taken out that sell side liquidity. We've come back and rebalanced the main extension leg, right? And in the conditions that we're in, I don't anticipate that we need to pull back much further, right? Because this is very bearish. We will usually find sell side liquidity pools, so to speak, or liquidity pools of sellers at more proximal levels when we are in this kind of condition. So we've got that bearish imbalance. We're seeing that sellers are being picked up around here, just above that midpoint. And now we want to more or less jump onto that momentum which has been found on those lower time frames. So if we jump down to the hourly, you can see that this was that wick that we got right here. So we've got this wick where price attempted to run higher. It was exhausted. It was failed on higher prices. We now induced this bullish imbalance there, meaning that the buying intent, which was one present here, has now been induced. And now we go to M15 and we start looking for entry points. And really, for me, everything has been confirmed. So all I'm really looking for is an area that lines up with some kind of array that I can get into with a decent risk to reward, at least to the Asia lows, since it's a Friday. So regarding M15, we have this imbalance here, which is actually a BPR. So I'm going to get rid of that and put BPR. Drag that along. BPR. This here is the hourly imbalance. I can get rid of that for now. So if we weigh up the RR of a BPR entry, you can see that this isn't great. This isn't great. So we can go to the 5 minute and refine. What we can get instead is this shift. This shift tends to be quite responsive and tends to be a sensitive area on our charts. So that 5 minute shift, I could do that instead. Still doesn't make this much better. And then the only thing we can really do here is tighten our stop. Because we're anticipating this to be an injection of liquidity, we have this bearish imbalance, and I'm happy to put my stop loss over here. You see that now makes it a 1 to 2 RR. You see that we take out this area of buy side liquidity. This becomes our area of sell side liquidity. And now this is the trade that I would be looking to enter, right? So you see that we got all this bullish intent. It gets induced out of that bullish array that I mentioned. And And now we're seeing bearish intent on the M15, right? We've wiped out that bullish intent on the H1. So now this is our final draw on liquidity that we want to target on the day. So overall, this is the trade I'm looking for, with partials being banked at Asia low, heavy partials as well, in my opinion. So this is what I'm looking for. I will update you guys as the trade plays out. All right, guys. So as you can see on the MetaTrader, we've now been tagged into this position. I'm going to be putting my stops ever so slightly above these highs. Right, so we'll get that there. And potentially just adjust that a bit. Right, just to be clear, we've got this imbalance, which, if we are right, should keep price down, so to speak. Get that there. Right, as such. So we're looking at this area being a barrier to our stop. And then as a TP, I'm happy to let this run more or less to the lows, right down here. It is a Friday, so I'll be banking partials heavily. I don't expect to get down there. I don't expect for us to get down there today, but this then becomes a heavy partial level, right? So this is Asia low. Zoom in a bit. This here is Asia low. I really can't get this done very nice. This here is Asia low. This here is your previous day's low. So if I come over here, you can see Asia low, which actually is a bit further back. Your Asia lows down here. Anyway, I'm happy to keep it there. And then your previous day lows at the bottom of this range. 4 hour, still respecting that 4 hour imbalance. Hourly, just coming back up, I believe, to grab liquidity. And then we can start to see price roll over. All right, so when we first started this video, right, we were targeting this low down here, the low of 1.13753 as our first target. However, what you need to understand is that the nature of delivery, or the nature of liquidity, sorry, has shifted, because when we were moving down, this low wasn't in place yet. So the next level of liquidity was this liquidity pull down here. However, what we now need to realize is that new low has been printed, and there's no guarantee that we make it here, right? It's highly likely we get to this level, but then seeing follow through from there decreases, right? The probability of seeing follow through from this level decreases. So what we need to do is get a partial out here, I would say around 25%. And then depending on the time we get down here, if we get to this level early New York, right, so around 1:30, then I'll be taking 25% out here, and then I'll let the rest ride, and then, you know, kind of gauge everything from there on. If we get here very later in the day, closer to 3 p.m., I'll close more or less the full position, 75, 80% out here, and try and let the rest run to the end of the day. Again, you're weighing out your probabilities, which are dependent on time and price, right? All right, so we can now see price is approaching our first target quite aggressively as well. You always want to be ensuring you're taking profits when price is moving aggressively like this, because all we have to do is hit on a liquidity pool or an area where price is deemed as cheap. Sellers will get exhausted, and then we can easily see a flip back. So look, here we go. As soon as we tap this low, I'm going to close out 25% of this position. There we go. So we've taken that. Let me just turn on trade history. Now notice what we're doing here. This is all a form of equity management, where if price was to have come to that level, and then now you start seeing price pull back, you're going to get very emotional, because you've been up a certain amount of money. And then as price starts to pull back, you see that money disappear as price comes back to your entry, maybe close to zero. And you start to get emotionally invested into your position. Whereas now what we've done is we've removed some of that emotional weight off our shoulders, and at least we know we've banked some profit. So even if we take a full loss now and price was to spike up and take us out, we didn't take a full loss, we've managed our position. So it's all about managing your position, which in turn manages your emotions, and that's all what the game is about. So we have imbalances to the upside now, right here. We have this one here, and then hopefully in the next 1 minute, we're going to get another imbalance here, which can be used to inject liquidity to the downside. There's lots of lessons to be learned in this video here. All right, so now we're starting to break through that level we spoke about. It looks like there was obviously some kind of sell stop pulling down here, because look how the nature of price delivery shifted as we got down here. Look how we're starting to rapidly drop and seek liquidity as most likely sell stops get triggered. Obviously, we can't be fully sure that that is what's happening because we don't have access to the level 3 data, right? I don't know why this keeps showing up on my chart. But we should get quite a rapid move into this low, especially because it's 12.39. So we should see a rapid price move into this low. Like I said, because we're coming into this level at decent timing, I'm happy to get 25% off of this position again. So I'll be looking at 1.25, closing out 1.25. Look at that. Look at the nature of delivery here, gents. And then just looking at where that Asia low is. Yeah, it's actually lower down. The Asia low is actually down over here, right there. Okay, so here we are now approaching our next level. I'm going to modify position, sorry, market X. We want another 1.25 coming out of there. No, I'm lying, 1.5. And we're going to close that as soon as price transacts at that level. The only thing I'm worried about is that we have just taken out these sell side targets, so maybe we are a bit exhausted, but nonetheless, there we go, bang. Second partial bank, look how quick that was. Nice. So we've banked the second partial. We've got rid of that level now. Look how lovely these are, right? Look how nice these levels are, and how price locks into them. So I'm zooming out now, and our final target is down here, right? This is the previous day's low. We should see price run pretty nicely to that level. If not, then at least we've banked out the majority of the position, and now I'm happy to move this to break even, right? So we move that to break even. So if price takes out this low, this local low, before we pull back, I'm going to close out 10% of the position, as in 10% extra. So I'll be a total of 60% out, because it's now coming up to 130. These lows can easily cause reversals, especially when they're from New York, right? We can get this as some kind of liquidity grab of Asia low, and then it can easily flip long. So if we come back down here to revisit these lows, then I'm going to close out 10% of the position. But I want to shift this over now to being, as we start to cross from 1:30, 2 p.m. These times, I want to start crossing over into being more out of the position than I am in. I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to close that there. Bang. Lovely. Perfect. So we've got that. And now we've literally got, what, 40% of the position remaining. And we're running it down to these lows. So what you have to understand is that we are managing risk, because there's potential that this can reverse on us here after these lows. There's no guarantee that price is going to continue seeking liquidity. It's Friday. If we flip now and give a pullback, you know, it's lower probability that we're going to get a continuation. We've got to wait until Monday. I don't want to hold this over the weekend. But notice how each time I'm taking profit, I'm protecting myself against adverse price movements. So I take profit here, price pulls back against me, right? I'm less emotionally involved in the position. When it's going against me, I'm less likely to make irrational decisions. Price expands in my favor, we hit my next target, I take some of the position out. As price pulls against me, I'm less emotionally exposed to the position and less likely to make emotional or irrational decisions. So look, we're waiting to see what price does here now. Are we going to just complete this sell side delivery and run lower? Well, there's two scenarios, right? We're either going to get our kind of final sprint play, which is where price is so close to this sell side liquidity and it's acting as such a magnet, so to speak, that we can just quickly move there. Or we're going to get the scenario where we're going to get some kind of New York protraction which is what I'm protecting myself against as we move in my favor, right? As we move in my favor, I'm protecting myself by banking some of the position. And you can see how nicely we've done that. It's actually very beautiful. This is a very beautiful position. All right, gents. So as you can see, we've been stopped out on the remainder of the position. And this should be a very big lesson to you, right? Like, look, there was the potential. I was sitting here at this point, right? You see where all these wicks kind of touch. I was looking there and looking to hold the whole, close the whole position. But at the end of the day, look, there was no negative, positive divergence with DXY. This was very much open. And that's why we take, partials along the way. Because imagine you hadn't taken this partial or you'd only taken 25% of your position out. If this happened to you, you'd be fuming. I've taken 60% of my position out. That's okay with me. I've got 1R out of the day, right? Like this happens. This happens. You have to be okay with that. I said it beforehand that there's a potential that we run this low and then flip bullish. And we've protected ourselves against that. The only thing I wish I did do was maybe take a bit more off, because 60%, 40% is still quite a bit, bearing in mind we got this close to target. Like I should have maybe taken another 20% off on one of these push downs. But these are things you take to the journal, right? But I hope you can see the main aspect of this position, how nicely it was managed, right? We wasn't going to get much out of this anyway if it didn't go to full TP. So I'm happy with that, and I will see you guys in the next video.